So in this segment, I'm going to go through the purpose of each of these suits. If you are working with a digital deck, we're going to have a digital deck demo in the next segment, but you can be looking at the suits online as well. So first we have the orange suit, which is the type of entity, meaning what am I actually investing in, right? It might be a startup or a worker-owned cooperative or a perpetual purpose trust or a growth enterprise, right? So there's the different types of entities that can receive capital. Then we have impact criteria, which is the reason we say that this is about impact first investing. The reason that I want to invest in this enterprise to have some sort of a social or environmental impact, right? So it might be because they steward the environment well, or they have workplace democracy, or they have LGBTQIA allyship, or they have community ownership and control. Lots of different reasons that this enterprise is going to have impact. Unlimited, right? So you can have multiple impact criteria that a particular enterprise fits. It doesn't have to be just one. Whereas with the entity, it's just one entity. The next suit is local stakeholders. So often when people do impact investing, they think, okay, there's a set of entrepreneurs and there's a set of capital providers, and that's what we're trying to match up. And we're saying in community-based investing, where again, we're embracing complexity and we're looking at all of the players in our local ecosystem, we're going to see many different types of local stakeholders, all these, right? So it's everything from policymakers and mutual aid networks, government, faith-based institutions, chamber of commerce, capital providers. By the way, I should say in this suit, what we've done is made one card for capital providers that actually represents the entire suit called funding sources. So we recognize that all of the funding sources are stakeholders, but they're separated out, represented in the local stakeholder suit as capital providers. Because this is integrated capital, it's not just the financial capital. The local stakeholders represent the social capital, the political capital, and the knowledge capital. So next, we're going to get to the financial capital. Again, the local stakeholders represent integrated capital, right? Knowledge capital, social capital, political capital. The type of capital and the transaction structure suits are the financial capital. So the type of capital is generally divided up into debt, equity, grants, and some hybrids in between those things. So you'll see things in here like convertible note or a grant or a guarantee, a SAFE, a simple agreement for future equity, common stock, etc. So all of the different types of capital that you might put in. And sometimes those capital forms come in a mechanism for how you deliver them. That's called the transaction structure. This is a little bit more sophisticated, so we recognize that we've got a range of folks playing this game. Some have never touched financial capital before. It's all new. You might limit yourself in the beginning to the type of capital suit. But the transaction structure are forms that capital can be delivered in, right? So various types of equity investments may come with a variable or demand dividend. There are certain types of debt that might have an income sharing agreement. We have some of the Spanish, by the way, the English Spanish, upside down, upside right. The seniority position is a particular way that debt flows back to the lender. So again, you can see there's different types of transaction structures. I also want to point out at the back of each suit, there are 2 blank cards. A, we might have missed something, but B, there's a lot of innovation happening in the space and new types of transaction structures are emerging. So there's room to write something in if you need to. And that's the case in every suit. We've left 2 blanks. Then we get to the impact covenants. So this is probably new for most people. When you do an investment, there's all kinds of covenants that may occur. For example, if you make a loan, you may have a debt coverage ratio. You may have some constraints on leadership. So those covenants go into the term sheet. They go into the transaction. There's an opportunity to also work with impact covenants, which is you said there's some impact criteria that made you choose this enterprise. You may want to make agreements with the enterprise you're investing in about the expectations around impact over time. They could be covenants like the kind of racial equity expectations in terms of its recruiting practices, or that it's going to have local procurement policies and practices, or it's going to pay a living wage. We can get more into that. Aliana Pinero, our impact director, has a lot to say about that in the module on impact management. What I'll say about impact covenants is they are a really valuable tool that can be easily misused. So we want to use them as allyship with entrepreneurs and not as power over entrepreneurs. And again, I'll refer you to Aliana's module on impact management. And finally, where does the capital come from, right? So again, people think, oh, it's a bank or a VC, but I like to show that it's a really big suit here. There's so many places that you may be able to get capital. So of course there's venture capitalists and private equity and banks, but there's also CDFIs, community development financial institutions, and corporate philanthropy, and registered investment advisors who have wealthy clients, and family offices, and anchor institutions and churches. So lots and lots of different resources that might be interested in investing capital into the enterprise. So that is an orientation toward all of the suits. You can certainly use this as a glossary, as flashcards if you wish, but we have a couple different games that we've designed, and I'm going to take you through a few of them.